Welcome back to UX Spotlight, the podcast where we dive into the realities of user research, design, and product strategy. I am your host, Denis Cristia, and in today's episode, I'm thrilled to introduce Debbie Levitt. And Debbie, you have the stage. If you may introduce yourself to the audience, would be greatly appreciated.
Sure. Thanks for having me on. Hi, audience. I'm Debbie Levitt, and my company is called Delta CX. I've been doing CX and UX strategy, research, design, problem finding, problem solving, change agent work for, let's just say, decades. Delta CX is a full service agency and consultancy doing a lot of projects and training and coaching. You can check us out at Delta CX. Basically it's kind of ask me anything about product strategy and user experience and whether or not we should use AI with these things and so on.
Thank you so much for your introduction. And I would like to start this episode directly in the thick of it. Now, in your new book, you are talking about how companies are caught in this endless, should we call it, cycles of failure. And we've normalized it so much that we even tell ourselves fail fast and fail often, I would say. I will ask you, why do you think the industry got so comfortable with failure, and what is the real cost of this mindset?
Yeah. So for those who don't know, my new book is called Atomic Product Market Fit, and it came out in February 2026. So we're referring to that. So I think that for many years, companies have really idolized the idea of being some sort of startup, like, oh, startups, they're so fast, they're so nimble, they can fail fast and learn. And everybody fell in love with some of the books and training that came out for startups. But what a startup does isn't necessarily what a larger or more established company should do. And certainly we don't want to emulate startups' failure rates, because if you look up the failure rates of startups and new product launches and marketing campaigns, at this point, it feels like almost 90% of things everywhere are failing. But when you keep hearing fail fast, fail more, break things, go faster, let's go faster, companies got really hung up on this idea of fast. But the weird thing is that nobody seems to be hung up on quality. So we're all going to be faster and faster and faster, and we're going to ask AI to help us or do some of our work, and then we're going to be faster and faster. So when every company is fast, and when every company maxes out fast, who's good? Who do you want to give your money to? And I think companies will need to refocus on that, especially in a world where at this point we're all pretty fast. But you also asked, what's the cost of it? And in reality, the cost is easy to see for the people inside the company. They see the complaints, they see the downgrades, they see people canceling, they see people thinking of canceling, they see people using features less or not utilizing a new feature at all. There's always, even if we're not doing qualitative research and talking to people, which we should, there are still things we can notice in our metrics or analytics or whatever we're looking at, dashboards, and we can see some of that cost, or at least the early signs of it, because ultimately the cost of it will be to lose customers, to lose revenue, to make it harder to win or keep customers, that retention everybody wants. And as I mentioned in the book, you might think you have product market fit, but you can lose product market fit. We can all think of a company that fit us well and then didn't, and we left. And right now, wherever you work or used to work, people are having these conversations about you. They're saying, is this company really worth what we're paying? Can we find a better company? So people are ready to jump, and it's easier than ever to leave.
Thank you so much, Debbie. My curiosity is that in your book, you're using this term, vibe producting. How could you explain to our listeners what vibe producting is and how it actually blocks teams from finding true product market fit?
Yeah, so I made up a little term, vibe producting. I think by now we all know vibe coding. The idea behind vibe coding is you might not be a programmer or a developer, but you're going to go into an AI or LLM tool and you're going to essentially do coding with it or have it do coding for you. And so we're familiar with vibe coding. And I think what we're seeing now is a lot of what I'm calling vibe producting, where instead of taking a more strategic approach to better product and service directions for our company, we're instead trying to go more and more either with our gut, and we're trying to have what some call product sense, like, oh, I should just be able to use my intuition and know what our company should build. Okay, you can roll those dice, but to me, vibe producting is also kind of the overuse of AI when trying to better understand your target audience, their needs, their tasks, their behaviors, the opportunities to better serve them, because that's why any of us have a job anywhere. We're supposed to be better serving an audience in some way. And if we're not connecting better with that audience and doing the right research and understanding those needs and opportunities, we're working on vibes. We're working on assumptions and guesses. And that can also lead to a lot of the failures that we were just talking about, or what I like to call failure squared, failure to learn from failure. And so I'm trying to get people away from vibe producting and away from trying to build things based on gut feel or intuition, or what I've been hearing for many years, we know our users, we know what they need. And then everybody's surprised when the customer's unhappy. So you also asked, how can this block product market fit? And I think it's because it gets in the ways of a better process, a better approach to deliver the right things. You know, we always have discover what people need or what would best serve them or what could be improved for them or streamlined. And then we have build that well so that it solves their problems well without creating new problems for them. And I think the more we go by gut or sense or intuition, we're doing what I call assumption stacking. We're stacking, oh, here's what I think people need, and here's what I think they do, and here's what I think we should build, and here's how I think we should build it, and here's how it will work. And these are all just assumptions layered on top of each other if we haven't done good early discovery or generative or exploratory research. So I want to encourage people to go back to the good processes that your favorite companies use. It's not like I'm recommending something that nobody does, that is weird, or that I made up. Good research is something done by all of your favorite companies. The company that made your smartphone and you love that smartphone, they spent a lot of time researching, how do people use these things? How do they want to use these things? What shape should it be? What weight should it be? What happens if people have a disability? The companies you love best have research teams, and they make sure that all of their product strategy and product work have excellent research at their foundation.
That's so true. I guess it comes down to the fact that you kind of have to touch grass with the actual research part and get to know your target audience in a true, I would say, perhaps as direct as possible way that's not interfered by third parties like language models, AI, things that can feed you information that it's not perhaps directly coming from the source, or it's not relevant from that perspective. And I would say perhaps, and I was just thinking about it right now as you were saying it, that people form their own, they're acting on intuition and gut feeling. And I would say perhaps while using this alternative sources of gathering research like AI, perhaps time by time, this could build up a mechanism that perhaps builds towards just confirming your own biases. So even if you go back to more, I would say, standard forms of research, you would still find ways to confirm your own biases, perhaps. You would still conduct the research in a way that already confirms your preconceived opinion of that. Would you characterize that as fair, or would you feel like pushing back a bit?
Yeah, I'm not afraid to push back, but I do agree there. And it's actually in chapter 3 of my book where I really want people to think about their confirmation bias, whether that's a need to prove themselves right, they're afraid to be wrong. Oh, no, if we're wrong, it's going to set our project back, it'll delay our project. Oh, no, if we're wrong, that means the thing the leader asked for could be wrong, and we're afraid to push back on that person. There are lots of reasons to hope that research or a product or a service or a prototype or something goes the way we hope it will. That's just natural. But the problem is that if we start manipulating the data that we have or that we're gathering, we can end up going in the wrong direction and ending up with small and large failures. So I've certainly seen companies run surveys that try to prove that everybody likes this and this is going to be great. And I've seen people run bad interviews where they come back saying everybody loved it, they can't wait to pay for it. Yeah, as in everybody's lining up to hand you money, said no one ever. There's always, that's why in the book in chapter 5, I talk about, look, there's research and there's excellent research. You can definitely run research and go out to a coffee shop and ask people their opinions. But is that excellent research? Are you coming back with great data, or are you coming back with any sort of biased or flawed data because of who you asked, what you asked, how you asked it, where you asked it? There's so many ways for research to be not excellent. And so I definitely want to get people more in touch with any biases they have, especially that confirmation bias where you just want to prove yourself right, because you can pretend you're right all day long, but if the customer won't pay for it, if the customer won't use it, congratulations. I don't know what to tell you there. Now you're going to have to figure out what went wrong, how, where, why, so that you don't make the same mistake again.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the incentive is, I would say, success and profit on the market. So you would probably like for your product, whatever you're selling, whether it's a product or a service, to be as successful as sellable and demanded as possible. So you would probably then be incentivized to be thorough in your research so you can target the market and your audience in the most effective way possible. And that can only come if you're honest in your research, because
And I think
otherwise,
that, sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think that's a bit of that can be more raw if you're the founder, if you're the entrepreneur, if it's your startup, then you're really living every success and failure and every piece of this because it's your baby. But when we work at larger companies, very often we feel like just a part of a big machine. And when we have that failure, nobody seems to care. Nobody says, wait a minute, you spent how much money on a failure? Get your butt in this office. We need to talk about you and your team and your job. I haven't seen that happen in about 10 years. And so I think in reality, people feel like, well, there's no real incentive to do better. There's no reason to do better. So I'm just going to do the fastest thing I can. But that's usually sacrificing quality. And in the end, you might find someone is paying attention. Someone notices when you lost hundreds of thousands of dollars or €500,000 or customers are leaving. Someone will notice. And I think that for a lot of people, people in jobs aren't in the trouble they used to be, but now we're all afraid of being laid off. And I think that the more we can prove our value, the less likely we'll be to be laid off, though some layoffs happen for bad reasons and we can't control that. But in general, a smart company wants to keep the people that make the company money. And we make the company money by attracting more customers and keeping them, putting in less effort to do that. It's going to, I think over time, AI could make us faster, but it doesn't always make us better. And we still have to deliver something that's of quality to our target audiences. Otherwise, they might just leave, or at this point, they might vibe code their own thing.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And that perfectly actually leads us into the core framework of your book, if I may call it this way. Usually, when we hear about product market fit, we think of it as one massive micro level achievement. But you argue that a PMF is actually won or lost at three atomic levels: macro, meso, and micro. Could you perhaps walk us through these three levels and what they mean?
Yeah, sure. So I had a Silicon Valley startup over 15 years ago, and all you heard all day long was product market fit, find product market fit. And what it essentially meant is you've got a product or service that fits your market. It's not the sexiest term on the planet. It basically means what it says. Do you have a thing that fits your target audience? And eventually you're going to find a way to measure that, usually over months or sometimes years of revenue and loyalty and retaining customers. But we typically think of it as at the macro level. And so, like, an example I use is PowerPoint. PowerPoint makes slides. PowerPoint has product market fit because there are people who will pay for it and who will use it. Or if you don't like PowerPoint, you could think of Google Slides or anything. Some people make slides in Canva, Figma, Miro. Just run with me here. So typically we think, oh, people, the market, need a product that makes slides. PowerPoint's good at that. People pay for it. Boom, we've got product market fit. But in my book, I say that's kind of the macro level. We're way up in the sky looking down at 10,000 feet from an airplane. There's two other levels that I want to bring in, and that's why I call it atomic. The meso level is kind of your mid level, and that's every feature and service. So PowerPoint isn't just one thing. PowerPoint does lots of things. You can certainly make slides. You can make slideshows. You can do different designs of your slideshows. There's all kinds of features within PowerPoint. Every new feature a company introduces or a service should fit the market. So when PowerPoint adds Copilot AI to PowerPoint, for many people, that sucked. Copilot's not doing well right now, as you and I are talking in spring 2026. And so when you add Copilot to PowerPoint, now we're at the meso level because it's a feature. It's a feature I can turn on. It's a feature I can turn off and still use PowerPoint. And so here is something that is killing PowerPoint at that meso level before we could turn it off. Originally, you couldn't turn it off. Now at least you can. So that's where a feature or a lack of a good feature can hurt the product and make it lose that good connection with the market, where now people are complaining, they're downgrading, they're leaving, they want someone who has better features and services. And then we have the micro level. And the micro level is absolutely every moment, every touch point, every interaction, every human, every digital experience, every non-digital experience, and even your price and trust. So, I mean, a few weeks, or maybe it was a month or so ago, I was looking at LinkedIn, and almost everybody in my feed said, I'm fed up with OpenAI. I'm going to Claude. I can't believe OpenAI did blah, blah, blah. That's it. We're all leaving ChatGPT. We're all going to Claude. And I think it was some ethical or unethical thing, once again, that OpenAI had done. And the interesting thing there is, hypothetically, ChatGPT has product market fit, and it might have Meso product market fit, where people like the features and how it works. But then you get down to the micro level, and maybe they're not happy with the answers they get from it, or the speed of the model, or the reliability, or the hallucinations. These are all at the micro level. And then there's trust at the micro level as well. If people say, I think this company is just too unethical for me, I'm leaving. Well, they might still want PowerPoint or an LLM. They might still want all of those features, but now you've lost them at that micro level. So I want to encourage everybody, whether they're in UX or product or something else, to start thinking about the things they're working on and what their company offers in these levels because we want to make sure that every feature is a match to our market. And then we want to make sure that the execution of that idea, the design, the steps, the flow, the task, the moments, or the human interactions, support, sales, in-person store experiences. We think of that as service design. That is your micro level. And if you or your audience, if you think right now, I'm going to challenge you to do it. Think about a company that you did business with, that you stopped doing business with. Even if you don't name them, do you have someone in mind? Can you think of someone? We can always edit it so it sounds like you immediately thought of someone. But do you have in mind a company you stopped doing business with?
I do, yeah.
Okay. And without saying who it is, because we don't have to name names, can
Yeah.
can you give me one or more of the reasons why you stopped doing business with them?
Yeah, well, first of all, they changed their service in a way. They made it more limited and they charged almost double for that now limited offer,
Okay,
which
great. But you
in my
switched to
opinion
a
is insane.
competitor.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And I switched to a
So
competitor, of course.
you were still in that market. They could have had product market fit with you. They could have kept you as a customer, but you weren't happy with the features and services, which is at my Meso level. And then you weren't happy with the pricing, the value of it. You weren't getting a return on your investment. And that's at that micro level. And I'm trying to remind people that we're so busy looking at product market fit in this big overarching way, and we're missing that where we disconnect with customers time after time is going to be where you just said, these meso areas and these micro areas. And I want to challenge people to start looking at whatever they're doing in their own startup or business or job and look at it in a different way and look at all of the ways that you really need to connect with people and fit them and deliver something great for those opportunities because they are wondering if they're getting ROI, return on their investment in you. And when they see that the return on the investment isn't strong or isn't there, ciao, ciao.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I just want to quickly go back to my example. I'm not going to mention any names, but I'm a bit, I would say, slightly annoyed with this because this was a product that I was using quite often in my work almost daily. And I already got accustomed with it. I knew exactly how to use it. And I didn't want to go through the process of learning how to use another product. And I was very happy with it. And I was even willing to pay the price they asked had they not also limited my usage of it. So if they only did one thing,
Right.
but not the other, I would have still kept with the product. I was willing to pay more for the same offer. But not only that they asked me to pay more, but they reduced the offer as well. And that's something that is just not acceptable for any sane person, I would say, maybe, especially when you have competitors.
Exactly. And nearly every company on the planet has competitors. And in fact, there's something I've been talking about that I call the AI squeeze. And that is nearly everybody now also has competition from AI tools from kind of two directions. So number one, hey, there's some things that I could just vibe code myself. You know, why would I need to use this company, especially some of the newer startups that are springing up and saying, we do this, but with AI? Well, they're going to get the AI squeeze because I might be able to vibe code that myself and I don't need that startup. Or they might be squeezed from the other side, which is I have a paid Claude account. Why do I need what you're going to do with AI when I could just put it into Claude and say, hey, Claude, do the thing? So I think, so going back to your example, when companies make a move like that, I often say, I would love to see the research they did because we want to bring it back to research, right?
Yeah.
I want to see the research they did that told them they could offer less for more money and that would be a winning approach. Because very often a company will go out and do either user research or customer research or market research, and they'll come back and say, oh, yeah, you know, people love us. they'd be very sad if they couldn't use us anymore. And you might have felt that way. Oh yeah, people would even pay a little bit more than they do now for us. They love us so much. Give us your money. But then with the limits is really interesting because I think it would be very curious. I would, and I'm making this up because I don't even know the company or what this is, and you don't have to say, but I can't imagine somebody running research and customers going, yeah, it would be great if you limited my usage. I think that would be super. I can definitely see customers saying, I love this thing. I love it so much. I don't want to live without it. I can see customers saying, I'd even pay a little bit more for it if I had to because I love it that much. I know I feel that way about Monday.com, hashtag not sponsored. But I can't imagine any research saying, and we can limit what these people can do. And so I wonder how they justified that internally. And my guess, and I wasn't there, my guess is probably either from the confirmation bias bucket, where somebody ran bad research that said, yeah, we can probably even drop these limits a little, or it's really arrogance. Somebody arrogantly said, well, if these people love us that much, and they're willing to pay a little more for it, then let's drop their limits so that they have to pay maybe a lot more for it. Let's put that out there. And it also sounds like they didn't test it. Because you can always show a different pricing page to a small percentage of people, run an A/B test, or you can do some interviews with people. I mean, there's ways to learn this before you go out there and step in a pile of dog poop. So I think the question is, what not excellent research did somebody run that said we can offer people less for more money?
No, absolutely. That probably has to come maybe a bit to some degree, either from the way you mention it, either confirmation bias or a bit of arrogance, because otherwise it just doesn't make sense to in some way alienate at least a part of your customer base
Right.
for no reason at all. For no
You
reason
run
at all.
that risk. Yeah, you
Yeah.
run that risk. And sometimes there's a leader or executive who says, yeah, let them go. Don't worry. Sales will find us new customers. I did some consulting for a big famous company I won't name right now, but they're on my LinkedIn, of course. You can guess. And when I would say, hey, you're really alienating your best customers, you're alienating your alienating B2B customers with big budgets who want to use you, but they hate you so much, they're going to stop using you. And the executives that I was speaking to said, so sales will find us new customers. And I think that was incredibly arrogant. And I think customers are worth keeping and they're worth understanding and they're worth, we claim we want to delight customers. Okay, I dare you. I dare everybody listening to this right now. I dare you to go delight your customers. Stop talking about delight and actually do it.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. And if you keep behaving like this in a free market, you'll at some point start getting a reputation, and people will stop requiring your services altogether. And that can never be good for business. I can't think of a scenario where that approach or attitude is good for business. I just can't.
Well, I agree. I mean, there are some people who continually there are a few companies we can name who continually get away with crappy systems, unethical practices, traverses. I mean, we can name a few companies that somehow seem to continue despite these. But the reality is that many companies, and especially startups and smaller companies, you don't have the staying power of a Facebook. You can't go out there and do tremendously unethical and controversial things and keep going like Facebook does because aren't Facebook. You don't have the audience and the power and the money. And so we can't look at some of these big companies and use them as idols because sometimes they are false gods and these are companies doing things we don't want to copy and shouldn't be copying. Or if you're going to copy, take the best of it. What is Facebook doing really right that you would want to copy? And then throw away all the other things throw away the unethical things, throw away the controversial things, throw away the things where they try to get users addicted and depressed. Don't look at this company and assume, oh, well, they're successful. They must be doing everything right. Let's be like them. Come on. I want everybody to be It's not only smarter than that, but more independent. We're not children in the yard hoping everybody will be our friend. We need to look critically at what's around us and be better than a lot of it. Let's don't just be Facebook, be better.
Oh yeah, no, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And now I would say that we're still on this topic of AI. I would really appreciate your take on this because you are very clear that AI can be a great partner, but it shouldn't replace human expertise. So, where do you see AI actually helping UX professionals, and where is it creating those cycles of failure we've talked about earlier?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to know about AI. It's all throughout the book, and I'll try to give the short version here. But in general, I have a paid Claude account, not sponsored. I'm paying
Not
for it.
sponsored, yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy with it. And where I have found that it works best, which I'm now teaching others, and I've got Claude skills that I'm selling. Whether or not you buy something from me, what I'm teaching people is to use Claude or your preferred system as a critical thinking partner. It shouldn't be replacing what you do. The moment it replaces what you do, a leader or executive will notice and decide that it can replace what you can do. So there's still a lot that I need humans to do and that I want humans to do. Like, for example, I was trying Claude Design the other day, which, as of when you and I are talking, is relatively new. It's about a week and a half old. And I found that I was able to create the entire prototype that I wanted within about an hour. Why? Because I have a design background. There's a big difference between a knowledgeable designer going into one of these tools and saying, hey, I'm going to need a an overlay that acts as a light box that has these fields, and I want a segmented controller here, and I want this affordance here, and I want that. I'm going to speak the language of design to a tool who's been trained on it and is going to make what I say and probably come pretty close the first time. Compare that to a non-designer who's probably going to say, I need a way to make a form that people can fill out. Show me a form. Okay, here's a form. No, I don't know if the form should be like that. Maybe it should have like a yes button. Okay, here's a yes button. So there's a big difference between somebody with domain knowledge and experience using a tool that can make them faster at something, or in some cases better, not necessarily, and somebody who doesn't have that domain knowledge going in and saying, hi, can you do this for me? Like, I vibe coded something and it's actually working, but I don't know poop about development or coding or any of these things. So chances are the code is crap. It's not secure at all, and that's why it's just a private Android app on my own phone. Nobody can have it. It's not in the store. It's just for me, so it can be insecure as all hell. But if I think I'm going to ever give that to somebody, it has to be better than that. So what I'm recommending for people is make sure you're challenging the AI. You challenge the LLM. If it says, oh, yes, I was working on a project in February and it said, oh, yeah, remember the guy who said he would pay 30 to 50 euros a month for this? And I said, who said that? And it checked all and I'd uploaded the transcripts of the interviews because that's where I work with it in my skill. And it said, oh, you're right. Nobody said that. Now, I have to challenge it and double check it. And we should do that, and we shouldn't be afraid of that. And that is time well spent. Because even though AI has the ability to augment us or help us go faster, we don't want it to make us worse. We don't want to end up embarrassed that we have hallucinated data. I'm very happy I didn't go to that client and say people will pay 30 to 50 euros a month for this, because that wasn't true. And no one said that. I know I'm over talking here because I'm so excited about this topic. I have found a
No, please
lot
do.
of, yeah, thanks. I have found a lot of ways to use Claude that I'm very excited about, but I'm never going to have it interview someone. To me, a human should always talk to a human because I'm not just talking to you, I'm watching you. I'm observing you. I'm listening to tone of voice. I'm looking at body language. I'm picking up things that only humans pick up about each other, and AI might not ever be good at that, maybe even in my lifetime, but it's never going to be another human person. And so that to me is not negotiable or replaceable. And we've even run experiments on my YouTube channel which is Delta CX Hive, like hive of bees, where we've let Claude be the interviewer. We've used certain tools to be AI interviewers, and we found them to just be terrible. So my thought is, if you want AI help in other places, cool, but be clear where the human is not replaceable, and be clear where you don't have that domain knowledge. If you asked Claude to write a research plan for you and all the questions, and you're not a researcher, you might not know if the questions are good or not. But I'm a researcher. If I asked Claude to do that, which I don't, I write all my research plans myself with zero Claude. But if you showed me a Claude generated research plan, I would probably have corrections because I have that experience and domain knowledge. So it's very hard for people right now because I think AI has made them feel like, holy crap, I can do anything. I'm a quantum physicist because I'll just ask Claude to do the quantum physics. Now look at me. I'm a quantum physicist through Claude. And I think people now feel like, whoa, I'm a designer, I'm a researcher, I'm a coder, I'm a data scientist. And my thought is, no offense, but you're not. There's an old joke where the punchline goes, to a captain, you're no captain. You know, you might have bought a boat and you think you're the captain of a little boat. Cool. But to the captain of a real boat, you're not a captain. And I think that's just where we need some honesty and self-awareness. There's nothing wrong with not being a captain. There's nothing wrong with not being a researcher, a coder, or a designer, but just to understand our own limits and that we won't know when AI is hallucinating if we don't have that domain knowledge.
Absolutely. And going back to the example that you gave, I want to tell a little story of
Okay.
my own. I'm specialized in media production. This is what I do. Let's put it in this way. Maybe it's easier for the audience to understand. I create videos and any media related content. And a lot of people told me that, well, the media production industry is finished. The AI will take over it and nobody will create videos anymore. It will all be done by AI. And my response is always, really?
Right.
Because this is something that people who have no idea how media production works would say probably, because they don't know that when you have to create media, you have to take certain footage and arrange it in a way that makes sense, and you have to synchronize it with the music, and you have to put voiceover over it, and you have to put sound effects, and you have to have a certain artistic style and vision to tell a story in a way and captivate the audience for whatever you're trying to do, whether it's a cinematic video or a commercial or a real estate video, in whichever industry you're working. It takes human input to do that. And of course, you can use AI. Personally, use AI, for example, for creating scripts. I don't want to spend a lot of time just writing the script and I have a certain idea. I use AI to create a script for it. But even that, I cannot use AI fully because although we write the script, I have to go over the script and correct it myself because it still doesn't understand certain things. Like this footage doesn't go there because it's too long and it's not fitting with the music. It's just not right. And AI cannot understand this. Only somebody who has experience in this domain, exactly how you put it, would understand this.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing just because I'm
Oh,
going
no,
to
you're fine.
interrupt you and be super impolite, but you're making me think of a video I saw on YouTube from a YouTuber I sometimes watch, and she took some famous guy's music course that now comes with AI. And the idea is if you create a song in your home studio, the AI is going to tell you how it is. And she is a musician, and she decided to put it to the test by putting together the worst song she could. And she took a drum beat and she brought out her flute and she played the flute terribly. She sang out of tune on purpose. She sang off rhythm on purpose. She made words that sounded psychotic, like, you know, truly unhinged, weird lyrics that, I mean, it was genuinely funny. And she fed it into the AI, and the AI was like, I really like the vibe you've put down here. You know, it was just such garbage. And she was like, how is anybody supposed to take this famous guy's course on writing and producing your own music when the AI is just going to tell you everything you do is great. Like you're not learning anything. And I think every time, to me, the point that I heard you making was that there's art in so many things that we do, that you might think video or media production is the manual labor of putting clips together or something, but that there is art to it, and that you're trying to create a story and a feeling. And AI is still not great at creating feelings. Even when we see some AI generated videos where the people finally look relatively normal and they don't have seven fingers coming out of their foreheads and stuff. Even when we see a decently put together AI video, I believe as humans, we don't react to it the same. There's something about it where we know that that's not a person. The way that the dead eyes, the facial muscles not firing the way a face moves, and so you can put together an AI video, but it's not going to be the same story or art or feeling. And I think that's clear from art, like what you're doing, but it's also true in our jobs as well. As researchers and designers, we're trying to learn stories and tell stories and solve stories, and product management to some extent as well. And that's why, and also, I want everyone to keep their jobs as long as they can. Otherwise, they've got to read my other book, Life After Tech. So, yeah, I feel like everyone should stop bringing in all these AI tools into their job, that where the tool is a Trojan horse, where the tool claims it's going to augment you and claims it's going to help you or make you better at what you do. Some tools do, but some tools do your job for you. Like I saw one that claimed you'll be a better product manager if you use this tool, but then it does a lot of the work for you. And my thought is, if you bring that tool into your job, you're going to teach everybody that this AI can do your job. And then you might have trouble keeping your job. So I want everybody to find that balance between AI helping us, maybe making things faster or better, AI hurting us and making things slower or worse because it's not good at it, or AI making it look like, whether it's good at something or bad at something, AI making it look like we don't need Debbie. We don't need Dennis. We have this AI tool now, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. And I'm trying to adjust to that for myself as much as possible, and use AI in ways that indeed increases my productivity, but it doesn't make me useless or stupid in a way. I'm still trying to use it in a way that helps me learn new things, and I can use those things to improve my career and my knowledge in this way.
Yeah, I don't understand the people who say, gee, I feel like I'm not thinking anymore. My brain's not as sharp. And I go, you did that to yourself, because I'm a paid Claude user. I'm on it sometimes hours each day. I have never felt so sharp. I have never felt so efficient, and not because of Claude, just because I'm a human who keeps trying to make myself better and smarter. Like, you and I are talking in 2026. I'm 54 years old. I have never felt faster, better at what every day I'm better than I was yesterday at whatever the hell I do. Everything. I'm a better singer, I'm a better researcher, I'm a better dog mom. Every day I'm better at what I do, and I find new ways to be even better and more efficient than I was. So if you think you want the youngest worker, okay, but I'm faster and I'm better, okay, but not because of Claude. If I didn't have Claude, I would miss it, but I know how to do all these things without Claude as well. So to everybody who feels like they're not as sharp, or their brains aren't as whatever, you're doing it to yourself. And I would say, start to take a look at, how are you using AI? Because I am not asking it to think for me. I'm always asking it to think with me, and I challenge it and it challenges me. And that's the relationship I've established with Claude, where I won't settle for cheerleading. My user prefs say I'm intrinsically motivated. Don't cheerlead me. Don't flatter me. I've had fights with it where it's like, oh, you're so sophisticated. It's like, sophisticated? I'm wearing camo pants, and there's nothing sophisticated about me, make no mistake. And then I said, well, what would you say if I were a man? And it said, oh, I would have told you you were strategic. And I was like, well, then this is some giant. gender-based crap here, because I would much rather be called strategic. So obviously there's still bias in AI as well. So, hey, everybody, find interesting ways to bring AI into your life, or don't. My husband uses it zero. He hates it. He's against it. And I support him in that. He doesn't need to use it for anything if he doesn't want to. You don't have to use this just because everybody thinks it's the coolest kid in town. You'll eventually find, I thought I was late coming to the party because I started about 2 years ago. By then, everybody had gone out and became a prompt engineer, which now isn't even a thing. And so, right. And so I thought I was late to the party. Now I realize I'm early to the party, but everybody just try to find healthy ways to use a tool. I think it also depends on what era you grew up in, because I grew up in the 70s, and all the computers, the robots and stuff in the 70s were like, this robot will help you. It may or may not be your friend. You don't need a robot as a friend, but this robot will help you. But sometimes it will make mistakes and you will need to correct it. That was a robot on every TV show. And so now that's the robot I have. So to me, it makes sense. I have a completely fallible robot that makes mistakes constantly, that may or may not be my friend, but I have to constantly challenge it and correct it. And so, but I think if you grew up in another era, you have a different perspective of robots or AI. And I think it's almost generational at this point.
No, exactly, absolutely. That's a good advice, and it's well said. And for the audience out there, I hope you can find a way to use AI in whatever way suits you best. I would say let's put it
Get
this way.
smarter. Make sure you're feeling smarter.
Exactly, exactly. And now we've come to my favorite part of the episode, which is something that I like to call the quickfire round.
All right.
And so, just to introduce you to the quickfire round, the way it works is that I would ask you a question, and you have to tell me directly the first thing that pops through your mind when you hear this question.
Okay.
There's no explanation needed, just a quick answer to the question, and that's why it's called the quickfire round.
Okay,
Now,
let's go.
are you ready?
Always.
Amazing. First question. What's a UX buzzword you wish would disappear forever?
Design thinking.
Mother. This is, well, you should really, I mean, I would not wish this upon you, but universities in the Netherlands are very interesting in the way that everything is based on this.
Yeah, and
And
the design thinking was meant to be a faster version of human-centered design and stuff we already had. So once again, we took something that was working and we tried to make it shorter and faster. And so there are some people who can do the shorter and faster version and have great outcomes, but most people did something shorter and faster and turned it into garbage. I remember the beginning of the pandemic when people were writing articles that design thinking should solve the pandemic.
no, exactly. That's a great point. Second question now. What is the best AI tool you are currently using?
Yeah, I'm all about the Claude, everybody.
The Claude.
When AI tools started becoming more popular in probably 2024, I had a test that I would run on every tool to determine if I wanted to use it. And no matter what version of ChatGPT I used, it failed the test miserably. And so I knew it was a tool I didn't want to use. And I also care about ethics, and I believe that AI at its foundation is unethical. That's it. There's really almost nothing ethical about AI. It's stolen everybody's stuff to train on. It's using resources. Unfortunately, at its core, it's unethical. So, starting from an unethical place, I'm trying to find the more ethical company to do business with. And at least for right now, who knows if that'll change, from the mountain of more unethical companies, I'm going for now with Anthropic.
Anthropic.
For Claude.
That's a strong choice, I would say.
Why, thank you.
And I would say most of our audience would probably agree with you. Let's put it
But
this
I
way.
didn't have to leave ChatGPT to get there. I was never a fan of ChatGPT, never a fan of OpenAI, and so I've been Claude since the beginning, and happy to be there.
You heard it, folks.
Not sponsored.
Not sponsored, I promise. Next question. What is one product teams overthink way too much?
What is one thing that product teams overthink?
Yeah, way too much.
I'm going to go with crappy KPIs. Like, oh, let's measure how much time people spent on the page and see if we can make them spend more time on the page. Why? Is this delightful? Is this useful, usable? Are they getting tasks done? Are they happy? Are they complaining? So I think when we have bad measurements and metrics and KPIs, whether it's time on the page or how much did they log in, like LinkedIn used to email you when you add a private message, they would email you the content of that private message, but they want you to log in more and spend more time on the site. So now you just get an email that says, you have a private message. Come log in and see it. I don't want that. I want the message emailed me. So, yeah, I think when we start getting bad KPIs and we start adjusting the user experience for some number somebody wants to see rather than a good experience. I'm sorry, this isn't as quick fire as you might have hoped.
No. That's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. We like to keep it honest and natural.
I don't have a short version. Go ahead.
No, that's perfect. Thank you so much. Well, that was my final question. And to wrap things up today, if you could give our listeners one actionable piece of advice, what would that be?
Ooh, I think the actionable piece of advice would be work with qualified researchers. A lot of people think research, that's just talking to people. But no, that's talking to people is one moment of a larger bucket of things that a great researcher does. Please, please, please don't skimp on great research. Your knowledge is at the foundation of every decision your company is going to make, and your team, and decisions about product and strategy and budget and direction. The knowledge is at the foundation of that. What do we know? And if we're working with assumptions or guesses or bad data, then these are feeding strategies, priorities, decisions, and more. So, my one piece of advice is please, please work with qualified human researchers, whether you bring them in as an employee, a freelancer, an agency, a consultancy. I don't care anymore as long as you bring them in. Please don't say, well, our product manager has a heartbeat. Well, they can do the research. If they don't have a background in research and they're not great at it, I don't want them doing it. Oh, our designer can do the research. If they don't have a background in research and they're not great at it, I don't want them doing it. And that to me is the bottom line. Please, please invest in research. The companies you admire the most spend a lot on research. They just don't write articles about it because it's their freaking secret weapon.
Well, you heard it, folks. Research coming directly from the source.
Why, thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Debbie. This was an amazing conversation. I had a lot of fun, and it was very, very interesting and very, I would say, knowledge-wise, very productive for me. And I hope it was for you as well, and for you people listening out there. And one last thing before I let you go, where could people get their hands on your last book, Atomic Product Market Fit? And where can people get in contact with you?
Yeah, so sometimes people hear these and they add me on LinkedIn, but LinkedIn loves to kill me in the algorithm. So I've got a website, I've got a URL shortener. So it's DCX, like Delta CX, letter D, letter C, letter X dot TO, and that will dump you on my page of links. It's like the Linktree page, except I made it. So it's got my books, my free Discord community, my free Patreon, my YouTube channels, my Twitch channel. That's got the list of everything. If you want to follow me on LinkedIn, you can, but don't be surprised if you don't see my posts because LinkedIn is killing me over there with their algorithm. But that will link to the book as well and other parts of the community. And if you wanted to send me an email, using the contact page on the Delta CX website goes to me. So yeah, if anybody has questions, please get in touch. I'm always happy to talk more about these topics.
Amazing. Well, if you're willing to send me that URL, that link, I'll make sure to add it in the description of this episode, and people can just click it and directly get in touch with you.
I will. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Debbie. And to you out there, thanks for listening and see you in the next episode. Have a good day.
Thanks.